"You need a family by Friday," the lawyer said. Then he looked at the woman who hated him. Evan Caldwell had survived a $2 billion merger that made 3 senators sweat, weathered back-to-back class-action lawsuits without losing a single night of sleep, and once stood perfectly still while a journalist threw a hot latte at his face during a press conference and said, calmly, "You missed my tie." He was not a man who flinched. He was, however, a man currently staring at his lawyer like Harold Fitch had just told him the building was on fire and also, by the way, it was his fault. "Say that again," Evan said. Harold didn't blink. Harold never blinked. It was one of his more unsettling qualities. You need to demonstrate a stable family environment before Friday. He set the manila folder on the desk between them, with the quiet finality of a man who had long ago made peace with delivering terrible news before 9 a.m. Preferably one that existed before this week. The 42nd floor of Caldwell Group's downtown tower was, on most mornings, Evan's favorite place on earth, floor-to-ceiling glass. The city spread below like something he'd built himself. Clean lines, clean air, absolute silence, except for what he chose to let in. This morning, the silence felt like a verdict. 3 weeks ago, his sister Sophie had been driving home from a late shift when a driver ran a red light on Mercer Street. She was 31 years old. She had laugh lines already forming at the corners of her eyes, an opinion about every movie ever made, and a 7-year-old daughter named Lily who currently occupied Evan's $12,000 Italian leather sofa and had spent the better part of yesterday asking why there were no stuffed animals anywhere in the Point. Apartment. "It's a design choice," Evan had said. Lily had considered this for a long moment, then said, "That's sad, Uncle Evan." He answered to it now. "Donna filed Tuesday," Harold continued, turning pages in the folder with the measured pace of a man who billed by the hour and felt no particular urgency. "Donna and her husband, Mark. They have a 4-bedroom house in Pasadena, 2 golden retrievers, and a yard with an actual swing set." He paused. "The court tends to find swing sets compelling. I can buy a swing set. You live in a penthouse, Evan. I can buy a building with a yard." Harold looked at him over his reading glasses with the expression of a man who had known Evan since he was 26 and had watched him try to solve every human problem like it was a Q3 earnings miss. "The court does not want you to acquire real estate to prove you're a nurturing guardian. They want to see evidence of community connection, emotional stability, and ideally," he paused here, just long enough to be theatrical about it, "a committed partner. Someone who demonstrates that Lily would be entering a family unit, not a very expensive bachelor situation." Evan stared at him. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that I need a girlfriend. I'm telling you that a demonstrated, meaningful relationship with a stable individual would significantly strengthen your case." Harold removed his glasses and set them on the folder. "The welfare investigator meets with Lily at her school this Friday. That gives you 4 days. 4 days. Evan had restructured a Fortune 500 company in 72 hours once. He'd turned around a PR disaster involving a leaked internal memo and a congressman in under 48. 4 days was, theoretically, enough time for anything. He pulled out his phone, opened Google, typed, and he would never admit this to another living soul, how to get a girlfriend fast. The first result was a Medium article titled, "Top 10 Red Flags. You're a Workaholic, and Why You'll Die Alone." The thumbnail image was a stock photo of a man in a very nice suit eating lunch alone at his desk. Evan owned that suit. "That's you," said a small voice behind him. He turned. Lily was standing in the doorway of the conference room in her pajamas, the ones with the cartoon sloths holding a juice box and staring at his phone screen with the unsentimental clarity that 7-year-olds applied to all situations equally. "You're supposed to be at Mrs. Patterson's," Evan said. She had a phone call. Lily pointed at the article. "Uncle Evan, number 4 says you never talk about feelings. You never talk about feelings." "I talk about feelings." "Name 1 feeling." Harold made a sound that was almost certainly a laugh, converted at the last second into a cough. "We're done here," Evan said. Harold closed the folder and stood, already reaching for his coat. One more thing. Lily's school, Eastside Elementary, the investigator will observe her there Friday afternoon. I'd strongly suggest you pick her up in person this week. Be present. Be visible. He buttoned his coat with the composure of a man about to walk out of a problem that was entirely someone else's, and perhaps look into the question of a companion. Sincerely this time, not via Google. He left. Lily finished her juice box. Evan sat for a moment in the kind of silence that had nothing peaceful in it, then picked up his car keys. He had never picked Lily up from school before. He hadn't known, until he was standing outside Eastside Elementary at 3:15 on a Tuesday afternoon, that the pickup line had a system, a specific, apparently sacred sequence of rules involving painted curb zones and a laminated number card he didn't have, and that violating this system would cause a woman in a yellow vest to look at him the way air traffic controllers looked at pilots who asked to land on a taxiway. He was still recovering from that when he walked through the main entrance and followed the hand-lettered signs down a hallway loud with the particular chaos of a school day ending and pushed open the door marked Room 7, Grade 2. The classroom was everything his office was not. Crayon drawings covered every wall, painted paper planets hung from the ceiling on fishing line. The reading corner had a rug shaped like a giant open book. It smelled like tempera paint and graham crackers, and every surface had something on it, a half-finished art project, a stack of readers, a jar of colored pencils with a small hand-drawn label that said, "Please put me back the right way." Lily was sitting cross-legged in the reading corner with two other kids, deeply absorbed in something that seemed to involve a lot of pointing. And at the front of the room, erasing the whiteboard with the particular efficiency of someone who had done this exact thing approximately 10,000 times, was a woman who turned when she heard the door. She was maybe 5 to 4, dark hair pulled back in a way that had probably started the morning neat and had since accumulated one escaped curl near her left ear. She had chalk on her sleeve, a lanyard with approximately 15 things clipped to it, and the expression of someone who was professionally warm to everyone who walked through that door until she wasn't. Her eyes found his face. Something shifted. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her voice was pleasant. Perfectly, carefully, pleasant. The way you might speak to someone standing on your doorstep whom you hadn't decided about yet. "I'm here for Lily. Lily Caldwell." He extended his hand on instinct, boardroom instinct. "Evan Caldwell." She looked at his hand. Then she looked at his face. She shook his hand with a firm, brief grip, and she smiled a composed, precise smile that reached her mouth with impressive accuracy and stopped there completely. "Oh," she said. The single syllable carried a weight he couldn't immediately identify. "Evan Caldwell." Not a question, not a greeting. A recognition, the kind that preceded something. "I know who you are." Her eyes were calm. Her voice was warm. And somewhere in the space between those two things was something that, in a boardroom, he would have immediately recognized as, "This negotiation is not going the way you think." He had no idea what he'd walked into. But the smile on Maya Reyes's face told him, very clearly, that she did. "There are people you dislike for vague, half-formed reasons, the way they chew, the way they say, actually, the particular frequency of their laugh. It's petty, and you know it's petty, and you mostly let it go. And then there are people you dislike because, 18 months ago, they signed a piece of paper that demolished the only place in a 3-mile radius where kids who couldn't afford after-school programs could come on Wednesday afternoons and learn that the color green could mean something besides a traffic light. Maya Reyes was very clear on which category Evan Caldwell fell into. She had found out about the sale the way most people found out about things that were being done to their neighborhood rather than for it. After the fact, from a flyer stapled to a telephone pole. Caldwell Group acquires Eastside Community Center site. Development to begin Q1. The flyer had been there long enough to get rained on. The decision, apparently, had not. The Eastside Community Center had been many things to many people. But to Maya it had been, for 4 years, a Wednesday. Every Wednesday from 4 to 6, she set up folding tables in the main room, taped paper to the surfaces so the paint didn't bleed through, and taught 14 kids between the ages of 6 and 11 how to hold a brush like they meant it. Most of them came from the apartment blocks on the east side of the neighborhood, the ones that hadn't been renovated yet, the ones where the hallways still smelled like other people's dinners and the windows didn't quite seal against the wind in January. None of them paid for the classes. That had always been the point. She had stood outside the building on the last Wednesday before demolition began, with 9 other people and a handmade sign, in the light rain, for 2 hours. Someone from Caldwell Group's PR department sent an email the following morning. It used the phrase community impact considerations 4 times and the word unfortunately twice and said absolutely nothing. She had kept that email, not out of sentimentality, just so she'd never accidentally soften the memory. So when Evan Caldwell walked through the door of room 7 at 3:15 on a Tuesday in his $3,000 suit, she recognized him.